My name is Mubarak. I'm a graphic design student here at ADMI in Nairobi, and this is my story on my experience in depression and how I managed to overcome depression. The depression that I went through resulted from bottling up information relative to religious matters, which I found myself in fear of opening up to my own family, to my own Muslim community. And this is a message of hope. This is my story.
So hi guys, today I have a friend of mine. I would want us to talk about his life, basically his story, and he's going to share with us just a few things that I hope you guys would find interesting. So yeah.
Hi, my name is Mubarak, and I'm here interested to share with you my life story, and hopefully you get something positive out of it.
So Barak told me he was going through depression, and I just want him to explain to us, what he was depressed about mainly. So yeah, Barak, explain. You said you were depressed. What are you depressed about?
So this was in the year it started in the year 2016, where I found myself bottling up information about what I personally believed in terms of my faith relative to beliefs and practices, my beliefs and practices as a Muslim, and relative to information, I would say false information, from what I tend to see a number of people in our Muslim community having understood. I felt a reluctance to actually open up and be straightforward from the very beginning. And I would make excuses telling myself that, I'll strategize for a time where I'm independent and I'm not living under, I'm not dependent on anyone, I'm not dependent on family anymore, where I can make my own rules. So that I can just be away from any pressure, any expectations that I'm not comfortable meeting, that are coming from other people.
So this was the depression was mainly to do with religion and just
Mainly religion, relative to feeling like I wasn't getting a positive, or in other words, a tolerant response from my Muslim community. And it had me fearing, basically, when you have teachings which I personally believe to not be true, but teachings which are considered to be part of the Islamic faith that have no basis in our religion, where someone thinks, you have people in the Muslim community who thinks that if anyone lives their faith, then their life is to be taken. And when you come from having that ingrained in your mind, and you're not someone that has developed this confidence to speak up before, in the face of injustice, then you tend to take the wrong approach, which is fearing people. And that's what I found myself doing. I took that wrong approach. I feared people, and so my depression came about as a result of bottling up information, and it happened over a period of time until I hit capacity and I could no longer contain the information. And so mentally, my mind just snapped.
okay. Yeah, it's nice. So what what do you have like scenarios or situations during that depression you had? What was significant, family wise, friend wise, you with your clan, so to speak.
So in
Scenario,
depression,
yeah.
what I could point out as
Yeah.
being significant,
Yeah.
what I realized was the concern I felt was the genuine concern that started to come out from my own family, feeling like they wanted to help out, and
And they helped out.
I felt I got immense support coming from my family,
Mm-hmm.
and what I would say that it also started off when I got to start communicating with a counselor right here in Nairobi, and I felt she paved that way.
Oh, so she mentored you and kind of
Yes,
shaped you.
she also would be the one whom, if my family probably didn't understand me in certain aspects, I would open up to my
her.
counselor
Yeah.
about whatever issues that I was going through, and she would basically be the one to address my family on certain matters, even including
Matters religion.
yeah, even including things simply as letting them know that let him have his space.
Okay.
You know, don't put pressure on him.
Okay, I get you. So, another question I'd want to ask, and also for the viewers who are watching, people who are going through depression. Barak has told us his depression and how it affected his religion. I would want him to tell us, how did he cope with the depression?
Number one that I can say helped me big time, and it was the main cure, was holding on to faith.
Faith.
Having God in my life was basically the number one, because I remember looking up cures on YouTube, and what I liked was, because I was on meds at the time, the cures that came up on the YouTube video involved not taking any medication. But in the end, I told myself what I came across from taking brisk walks to having a change in my diet where I'm consuming more omega-3 types of foods, including exposure to sunlight, good amount of sleep, antenumerate activity, which came about as to stop thinking about your negative past, as well as face-to-face interactions. In the end, I thought that all these things are only possible because God is the one in control. So these cures was a result of my Creator making that possible. And so it had me thinking that I have to put God
Look up
first.
to, yeah, exactly.
God has to be first in my life to be able to handle any situation. And so that's when I also felt I started embracing depression from a positive perspective, where rather than looking at myself being in a state of misery, I would rather look at myself as, what can I learn from this experience? And so one of the difficult things, but it helped me, I believe it really helped me progress, was to also acknowledge that I was the one at fault for not speaking up.
Yeah, exactly.
I had the right to speak up, and I suppressed my voice.
And many people actually going through this depression, you find yourselves not talking. So you are overshadowed by your family during this period. It's like they weren't paying much attention to you.
I'd say they weren't quite understanding.
Understanding you.
I don't blame it on them, and that's the other part that I had to take an understanding of, is that I couldn't play the blame game. I couldn't say that it's their fault as to why I'm like this.
Why
I got into depression.
Depression, yeah.
You know, as much as they weren't understanding, they didn't. I see it from the point that they didn't have the knowledge as to what I was going through, especially when at first, before I was kept on the meds, before I realized that I was going through depression, I was reluctant to actually figure out what was the problem.
Okay.
From experiencing myself just losing interest in things I've been passionate about, including architecture. And so I had that reluctance relative to whoever was being told to seek guidance from, especially a person. I would felt like they would just be judgmental. And so I was reluctant at first, until I opened up to it and then realized that's when my family also took on that more tolerant approach, having understood that I'm
Nice. Finally, one last question, and actually, question I would want you to pose to the viewers, people who are watching. What is the advice you would give to people who are going through depression right now? It might not be religion like you. It might be something different. I realize there are a lot of Kenyans, and youth who are usually faced with a lot of depression. What would you want to tell them?
I'd say find someone who you can trust. Don't be afraid of seeking help. And I would say once you get that person who tells you, especially get someone like a counselor. You know yourself. Depression is something that comes about relative to other cases that I've heard of. It starts off by people bottling information. They're afraid of speaking out. And it's relative to not having the confidence, fearing other people, fearing negative reactions coming from other people.
Exactly.
So get people whom you can trust, even though it's just that one person, but you need an outlet, And I'd say actually, yes, for those who are people of faith, put God first. And if you are someone also outside of faith, critically think, just reason out as to you understand that you need an outlet. You understand that you need help. Seek that help. Take that first step in terms of seeking that help. But don't keep quiet. Seek that help. And hopefully you're going to just only see yourself improving from there.
Okay, thanks. So thank you guys for watching this short episode. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be releasing more content to empower people who are also going through challenges, youth, and follow on Instagram and on social media, YouTube, and I hope we can continue. So thanks.
So just in spite of everything I've talked about today, one thing I'd like to clarify is despite my differences as a Muslim, and this is mainly to my Muslim community who may not have understood me properly, is that I don't consider myself, I haven't denounced my faith. I don't consider myself a non-Muslim because of my differences. And this is where I feel we need to promote engaging in meaningful discourse to actually address such issues and move away from the false culture of having important topics considered taboo for purposes of discussion. Because the number one step, I believe, to solving any problem is identifying the problem. People with problems need to speak up, and we all have problems. So let us be supportive of each other.